welcome back to another episode of Big Classic Podcast, right?
That's right, Big Classic Podcast,
Big
baby.
Classic Podcast in the house. And today we got a special guest, along with my co-host here, Walter Sellers, my other co-host behind the camera, the man with the plan, putting it together, Rashad Scott, and a personal friend of mine, bodybuilding royalty, has done everything in the sports of everything from a world champion powerlifter, strongman. He's been a pro in the PDI organization. He's professionally, are you a vice president of a bank or?
I'm actually the CEO of my own company.
CEO of his own company, so he's doing big, better things, and he hasn't even run for Senate, right? You ran for senator?
I did.
Ran for senator, so my man is established in the strength sport, established in the business world, and he fulfills everything we talk about when we talk about principles leading to success and how to improve yourself living on a daily basis. So definitely excited to have Jack on the podcast with us, and has amazing stories from the time when he lived in Venice, California, worked out with some of my favorite bodybuilders like Flex Wheeler, and so we're really excited to have him here today. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Fred. Thank you for that introduction. That's very kind of you.
It's the truth, man. This dude has been trained around me since 2006, right? 2006 and over at, 2003.
Yeah, it's 2003.
2003, that's right. And he actually inspired me to get back into it, go do the Jantana Classic, which I won the overall there back then. And he was doing his thing, and, he was like, man, you're going to be an amazing pro. And, at the time, I kind of believed him, but I didn't really believe him. But he was the only guy telling me I was going to be an amazing pro. Everybody else at that time was doubting me. And
not me, I saw it in you.
Yeah, well, and I've always appreciated for them. And he's also the one that looked at me when everybody else was telling me, man, you're hard. He looked at me and goes, you're not hard enough.
You're hard enough.
I was like, man, fuck you, I'm hard enough. He's like, not hard enough. And I went to the Nationals after, Steve Weinberger himself was like, I went to see him a couple weeks out. He's like, oh, you're ready. And, Jack was telling me I wasn't hard enough, and I didn't believe him. I went there and got third. So clearly I wasn't ready, but we fixed that for the next show.
But he came back and said, Jack, what do you think? And I said, you weren't hard enough.
Yeah.
And then he did it, and then it went up from there.
Right. So the main thing is, my man is always honest, always sincere in his criticism, and I can always count on him to be authentic 100% with me. So I appreciate you for that. Keeping true to our tradition, what's your client story of the week?
This week has been last week I should say, it's been a pretty fun week. I had a couple clients go out on work things, travel and everything, and I think we hit on it before, the true test of knowing when someone's going to be successful on their journey. And I had two clients go out of town, and both clients emailed or texted me where they're going to go for their meals because they're out with their coworkers.
Right.
And I've been beating in their head over and over and over again. You have to control the controllables. Mm-hmm. And when I get an email or a cell phone text message that says, Coach, this is where we're going, can you help me out? That tells me that they're dialed in and they're ready to go. So there's always a way to make it work if you're willing to work the process.
Right.
And that's the key, communication, constant communication.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So how about because you train athletes for shows and stuff, and when an athlete is messing up and they're falling off the diet and they text you with, do you think I can make it? You hear that a lot, right?
So a couple things. First of all, to your point, I always tell people with bodybuilding is a lot like business, mm-hmm. which is a lot like life, and it's real simple. To be successful as a bodybuilder, it's all about what you do when nobody's looking.
That's right.
Okay.
Amen.
Second of all, when I'm training a client, and I know Freddie's this way too, our names are on it. My name is on that person. When that person gets up there, everybody knows I train them. Not to be an egomaniac, but I take pride and ownership in my clients.
Sure.
And if they're not ready, I'm not gonna give them the thumbs up to go. And I've told a lot of people,
mm-hmm.
you ain't ready, you're gonna have to push the show back. I've actually told people who've come to me, you're not cut up to be a bodybuilder. I had a guy one time, and you know the person, I'm not gonna mention out of respect, but he comes in, gives me a bunch of money, and says, I want you to come to my house, and all excited. Passion's great, but discipline's more important, right?
Right.
I give him the diet, I write everything out, as we do. The next day, he texts me, I can't eat the fish. And I'm thinking, well, maybe he's allergic to the fish. And I'm like, what, are you sick? No, man, it's just disgusting. And I'm like, dude, this is not the sport for you.
Yeah.
Here's your money back. Have a good day.
Yeah, I mean, that's harsh. but I mean, there's without a question, everybody's going to be that's on stage with you is in incredible shape. For me, I was always looked at it a little differently because when I started, one of the things that got me excited about training people for the sport is that I was taking some people that didn't necessarily fit the mold. Right. So, like, the woman who was house mom, 2 kids, and didn't even know she wanted to lift, she would start lifting, look great, and then I'd be like, I want to try and do a show. So,
vision, it's called.
Right.
You always had great vision. I agree with that.
Right.
That's what makes you a great trainer. For me, not to interrupt you, but we're different. I'm not visionary. I'm not interested. I'm doing it.
But it's,
You're a visionary. You see, I mean that as a compliment.
I appreciate that. But, for me, like I always said, everyone's not going to be a superstar in the sport, right? And you have the people, just like everybody that joins the bowling league ain't going to be shooting 300s, right? Some are not going to be good, but they just like the bowl, right? So I've always taken that into account. And for me, I don't, to a detriment sometimes, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at some clients on stage, I'm like, they wanted to do it, I let them do it, but it does suck when you're looking at them and knowing if they had just waited another month, they would be so much better. But some people don't have it in them. Right. Some people don't have it in them to want to push to that level. And so does that mean they shouldn't do the sport? Like, they still look really good, they've looked better than they've ever looked before, they've lost a ton of weight, they feel great about themselves, and it's like, I want to do a show.
As long as they're happy.
Right, and so that's my criteria. Now, when we go to nationals,
right, that's different.
Or you say, hey, I want to do this Bev Francis show up here, that's different. But to do like the local Delaware, no offense, but the competition is not always that great, right? And some of the other local
wait,
shows,
I won Mr. Dollar. What are you saying?
Well, back then,
Yeah,
I remember.
It was tough back then.
I remember in 2010 to like 2014, 13.
Yeah, that was when I competed.
Right.
Yeah.
When you won Mr. Delaware, it meant something. Sean Roden got beat by Sean Nowry in 2009. That's saying nothing because we went 2 weeks later and won the North Americans overall, right? So the Delaware used to be crazy.
Yeah, but now it's not.
Now, I mean, it's like, and I think it's just, I'm not going to say, but either way, like it's just not what it used to be. But I remember where people would get excited about doing a Delaware, and every gym in the area would be talking about the Delaware months out, like who's doing it and talking shit on each other.
Yeah, I was
crazy.
part of that.
Yeah.
But to your point, I think you have a really good point that I never really considered, which is everybody doesn't have to be a pro to have fun doing it.
Right.
And that's not, to be honest with you, it's not something I've really considered up until the point right now until you said it, and I'm going to think about that.
Like, I had a kid last year who he was coming over from martial arts, and he looked phenomenal. Upper body looked phenomenal, and we were pushing, and we even had shredded glutes, but his quads would not come in. Right, his just a hormonal imbalance somewhere where his quads just weren't getting there. Of course, we could have done 3 more weeks of dieting, but he's having a baby.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's going to be top 5. And I told him, look, I'd like your quads to be a little harder, but you look really good. You're going to be top 5 in the show. It's going to be super competitive, but you're going to be in the first call out. So what do you want to do? And I leave it in his hands. Right? And the thing is, he's like, I can't do it later when my kid's on the way. All right, let's fucking do it.
Right.
Let's do the best we can.
No,
That's what he is.
No, you made a very good judgment call in that situation because you know what the future was holding.
And he's excited. Now we're getting ready for his next show, and he was like, he was ecstatic when he got off stage because he had never done it before. He placed top 5 in every category. He did 4. So we took a chance that we could possibly win with it, but he didn't win, and he was still okay with it because I told him beforehand, I'd like you to be slightly sharper, but you'll still be good.
Sure.
Now, I would never send somebody to nationals like that. That's different.
Of course not.
If we're going to nationals, then we got to be perfect. And like I just told a girl this morning, we're not going to stress you. We're not going to do the show you want to do and push your body to stress your body to do something that you're not ready for. We're going to do the show your body's ready for.
Yeah, well, you've put out a lot of champions.
Thank you.
Including me. You've helped me too. you've conferred with me on a couple of my shows and helped me get to a better place as well, so.
I appreciate
There's no
that.
doubt about that.
But, like, I just think that sometimes, I trust me, I hear the critics all the time, like, like, I ain't letting nobody do a show, that's my name on it, but, and again.
Well, I have the luxury to say that.
You have the luxury to say that also, and I could do it too. I just don't. I just can't do that. I'm not built that way. Like I like to judge. I like to coach from the standpoint of positivity and the sense of whether you're that person that's going to be a novice or the person that's going to. If you tell me I want to be a pro, then I'm coaching like you're saying. Don't tell me you don't want to eat fish, because that's not an option, right? It just works better. Insulin sensitivity is better when you eat fish. It assimilates better. Your body processes it better. You will be better with
Good
fish,
point.
right?
It's a really good point.
Right, but when you tell me I just want to do a show, I want to see what it's like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a really good
Yeah.
point. I never really thought of it that
You
way.
can eat
Well,
ground
I can
turkey.
tell you this: when you get close enough, he'll tell you, and he'll tell you if you ain't ready. Maybe we should start looking at a different show. He won't say no. He'll say,
Yeah.
maybe we should
Well,
look
that's
at a
kind of how I do
different
it
show.
too. I'm very tactful. I'm more tactful. Well, maybe not. I believe I am.
I told you, man. I think I told you what, in August last year. I wanted to do the show in December. He was like, "All right, let's do it." Yeah. He got a little crazy look around October. He was like, "Your body's not changing, Walter." Play with the diet, and it finally came together. But
Well, again, I have the luxury to pick and choose exactly who I want.
Well, this is not. You're doing it for fun. You love it because you love to do it.
I just want to be involved.
Right. So if you want to do it, we want people to respect what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah, you can go home, lay in your bed at night, and not think twice about a bodybuilding show. It doesn't do anything for you other than the love of doing it. So if you're not going to take your advice seriously, why
Well,
waste
that's
my
why I
time?
charge people. I don't even charge. I do well for myself.
Very well.
They don't need to make money. Not that it's a very honorable job. It's I love it. It's
Sure.
great. But I don't need the money. I charge people the money because I find that if I do it for free, they don't respect
They
it.
don't respect
Facts.
it. Absolutely.
Facts.
So,
Absolutely.
in fact, I need to make sure that my prices are commensurate because I don't want to dig into you or anybody else for the mere fact I don't want people coming to me just because of that.
Right.
Right. So, but what you're saying about the difference between someone trying to turn pro versus, that's food for thought for me. I'm going to think about that.
Right.
Really.
But why I got a guy right now who's getting ready for a men's physique, and he didn't come to me to do that, but he's freaked out because we went from looking like a dad bod
Right.
to now he's walking around. People are like, man, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? He goes, you think I could do a show? And I'm like, fuck yeah, let's
Why
do
not?
it. Let's fucking do
Well,
it.
but that's great.
And and now we're pushing, and I look at him and say, look, man, I know you like your football games. Right? I know you like the wings at the football game.
Right.
But I was like, you have an amazing business.
All we got to do is ramp it up just a little bit more.
Yeah, like you have an amazing business, right? And you didn't do that by being average. You don't want to get on stage and be average, right? Like, come on, let's be perfect for the next 5 weeks, And
That's great.
he calls me up. And he goes, I was going to go to that thing with my wife this weekend. We were going to go to that restaurant, and I don't know how much. Okay, we were going to go to Fogo de Chao with a whole group. They had it planned. And he calls me up and he says, I decided I'm not going to go. I told my wife I'll make her some scallops and steak at home. Is that cool? And I was like, yeah, add a big plain baked potato to it. And he's like, because I had depleted him down for 2.5 days so that he could do that meal, and it would still be, still hold a ton of water, but it wouldn't be any fat, right? So I was like, so he goes, I don't want to do it. I really want to do well at the show. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, now you're talking.
Yeah, now I'm like reinvigorated as a coach.
You
Like,
inspired.
That's right.
I gotta make sure this guy's good.
You inspired him, and that's your job.
Yeah, absolutely. But it just felt good because this is a guy who came to me at the beginning of or the end of like last summer and was like, I would just like to look like I work out.
Yeah,
Now this
great.
fucking
That's
guy
a
is
great
like,
story.
yeah, he looks good too, man. I'm like, wow. Yeah, so I'm excited about him.
I've been watching you coach for years. You're very good at it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Ties into, I guess, our next point, talking about shows and bodybuilding and going through hardship, the mental anguish of withdrawing from your friends, from your family to go through. I think Kobe Bryant was talking about it just before he passed. He was talking about his Mamba mentality, as you succeed, especially in the sport or in business, whatever, the top is lonely. the process is lonely because lots of people fall off along the way. What do you think are some of the key points you could give to our audience on how to deal with that reality? Is there a way to prepare them for that? Is there a way to give them some guidance to make it through? I know what I tell my folks, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys talk to your folks.
What did you say?
Embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck, right?
Well, first of all, no one can tell you about it. You have it's nothing like experiencing, because even when you get back to a point where we're at now, where we're off season, eating again, and we're training hard, and we're thinking about going back on stage, you still can't. You remember, but nothing hits you like when you.
No, it's the worst.
It's the worst.
It's hell. And I think you have to. I tell people this is how I deal with people. I say, listen, when a person comes to me, they'll say to me, "Well, I'm thinking about doing a show, but I got a wedding to go to in July, and I got a birthday party in June, and I got to." You're not ready, right? I always flip the switch, and Freddie has seen me do this.
Yeah.
I go from having fun and to, all right, I'm getting ready for a show and fuck everything and everybody, and I don't care about anything. And I've torn through relationships and jobs and every other thing, being so laser focused on being prepared. And for me, it's never been about winning, believe it or not. It's always been about being embarrassed and making sure I belonged.
Right.
I was always so scared. Freddie was saying how I'm one of the most shredded guys he's ever seen.
Always, yeah.
Because I'm so scared of being laughed at, right? And so, but as far as the mental anguish goes, I can tell you, I've done this years and years and years and years, maybe more times than you, maybe. But the point being is, you never, as Freddie's saying, you never get used to it. It's never something that you can just explain to somebody. But you also have to remember that nobody's making you do it. This is a choice you made.
Yeah.
And this is something you want to do. So it's almost like what Freddie was saying earlier with his client, it all depends on how I don't know if you know this, but I'm of Ukrainian descent.
Mm-hmm.
And my old man was the toughest SOB you ever met. I would tell him, Dad, I love you. And he'd look at me and go, yeah, you'll get over it. and that was when he was in a good mood.
Yeah.
There was no crying. There was no whimpering. There was, Jackie, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. I don't care what you do, but don't phone it in and don't half-ass it. Otherwise, I don't want nothing to do with you.
Yeah, shit, that's tough.
So that's why I'm the way I am in everything I do. There is no half-assing it with me. But it hurts, man. The anguish is tough, and there's times, I can tell you, up to about noon I'm good, and I start fading out, and you have your ups and your downs, and it's hard to manage your emotions and your nervous system. When you get your body fat to a certain level, your nervous system and your ability to negotiate things is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm getting at is, it's painful, right? But it's a journey, and you really gotta want to do it. And it's not about, it's funny if you really think about how ridiculous bodybuilding is. You spend 6 months getting ready for being on stage for 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you're up there for the glory, people always say to me, how did you last so long in body? It's just because, and he knows this, I just love bodybuilding. For me, I get a lot out of it personally. It's not about trophies, and it's not about titles, and it's not about being this or being that. It's just for me, right?
Yeah, I think you have to fall. Definitely have to fall in love with the process,
Right.
And seeing your transformation, both mentally and physically, happen. But for me, I think the hardest part is when you're on no carbs for days on end, because you have everything's tight. Like, everyone will see you in a tank top and be like, "Damn, he's ready."
Right.
But
You're not.
your stubborn areas aren't ready yet. So that's when suffering really happens. Like people go, "I want abs." People go, "I want lines in my legs," and all that stuff. But when you have all that stuff, now the real suffering happens, because you have to get the body fat your body has no reason to lose off of you, right? Because that's when you get to that level of healed. And I remember, I was so fatigued. I was just like, oh God. I just woke up and I feel like I can go back to sleep again.
Right. And
I'm like, I want to go down, I got to do cardio. And you're sitting there and you're looking, and you're just going, how am I going to get through it? I don't even know how I'm going to get through it.
Right.
But I remember, Sean Roden, God rest his soul, he would say to me all the time, one foot in front of the other. Just put one foot in front of the other. And what would end up happening is, you start your cardio, and once you get going, it's not so bad. Once you start going, Then when you're done, it's hell again, right? And then you're eating your fucking breakfast, and I remember crying. Did this show, and the diet was 8 ounces of flounder and 2 cups of lettuce for breakfast.
Ooh, that's hearty.
I think I did that. I think you gave me that one.
Bro.
Oh my god.
When you're done
there's
cardio,
like no calories in it.
when you're done cardio and you have to look forward to that,
That's like 100 calories.
that's horrible. You're so angry you don't even want to fucking eat
Right.
it. That's just gonna make you hungrier.
Right.
And it's just like
Right.
like that.
Right.
Sweet in the morning is like when you have Splenda and you're dieting, that's like fucking honey in the off season, right?
Sure.
So you're eating that thing and you're just like, I put Splenda on a fish one day.
I can see that.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
I was sitting there and I remember my wife at the time comes over, she's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't want to eat this.
Right.
She's like, aren't you hungry? I'm like, I'm starving,
Right.
but I don't want to eat
Right,
this.
exactly.
I want to eat this.
But it's funny because it's about the mental anguish.
Yeah.
It's part like Fred said, it's part of the journey.
Mhm.
I was watching a documentary about people who climb Mount Everest. Why the hell would you ever want to do that, right?
Right.
Because Freddie and I, and you too, we know what we can do. We know what we're capable of, right? Freddie can look at me, he knows what I'm capable of. He's seen me do it.
Yeah.
I know what I'm capable of.
Right.
And so I think that's part of it, right? You almost want to go, part of you does want to go through that pain. I know how I feel before a show. If I'm not suffering,
It
I'm
ain't
not
there.
ready.
Yeah.
And then when you get good at it and realize what you need to look at, if you don't suffer, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
too easy.
It's too easy, right? Because now, and that happened to me because I was guest posing all year, right? I was guest posing all year round, and then I'm getting ready for the show, and it's before I did the Arnold Asia. I had already done 7 shows that year. So going into Arnold Asia, we just kind of coasted in.
Yup.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not fucking
I did the same thing at the Night of Champions. I played the weight game and I coasted in, and I'm like, oh, I'm huge, and I'm 260, or I was like 250 something, getting on stage, which is too heavy for me. I mean, I'm a big dude, but for me to be chiseled like he's talking I'd like to be, it was way too heavy, and I knew it. And I'm soft.
Well, I oddly did it eased up because I was pushing myself so hard.
Sure.
And what ended up happening, my body like kind of
Sure, you went over.
needed the rep.
Yeah.
Because like the 2 shows before, I went in and people were like,
You're burnt out.
"You look like you were like 212."
Physically burnt.
Because I was just killing myself because I was like so tired of hearing, "You need to be a little harder." That when I came in that much harder, the judges were like, "You lost all your fullness." So I went into the Arnold Asia like this, man, fuck it, I'm just going, right? And I went in the whole time like, I'm probably not gonna do well, but fuck it, I haven't done well being shredded either, so whatever. And the judges were like, first call out,
Yeah, you look
second
good.
place next to Justin Compton. Actually had a point against him where I had a point where I was winning the show. And afterwards, you're like, man, your body just looks so fresh, you look so vibrant, you look
That's so
big, you look
funny.
thick, and I'm like, what?
Which just goes to show you, no matter,
You'll
no matter
know.
no matter how many years you do this, you still don't know what the
You
fuck
still
you're
don't know
doing.
what the judges are looking at.
It's where you have to come in. I think sometimes, it's like you think to yourself, I guess we shred it. Because I know for a fact, had you been fuller in some of them, you would have done better, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
right. So it's like you push yourself, and it's like that's why it's imperative that you have, even if it's not a coach, a second set of eyes looking at you. Because
2018 universe, I was over dieted. If I was 7 pounds heavier, I would have won.
Yeah,
versus
no
the
doubt.
place where I still placed well, but and that's the Navi universe, by the way, not the team universe, but the Navi universe in England. But
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
there.
It's a sacrifice, and
Sure.
it's I always err on the side of being shredded. But to Freddie's point, it has hurt me in the past. So
Well, that's what we did at the show in November or December rather, even before. Finding the right balance because being a natty athlete competing against guys who are enhanced, it's a tough game to play. I mean, I'm lucky I'm bigger than average Joe, but I'm not enhanced big.
my problem is I'm a psycho and you can't control me. That's when it comes to that, I
Yeah.
keep dieting.
and I fucking get it because I've been there. Like
I just get scared.
like when you hear a judge tell you if you were just a little harder. Like I remember the one
I
show,
refuse to hear that anymore.
my first Olympia, I heard that shit and I just went balls to the wall for 2 weeks in the Chicago Pro. So bad that I ended up with shingles.
Wow.
Right, I ended up with shingles, but I qualified for my first Olympia because I ended up taking second to who the fuck beat me? He's not even around anymore, but his name was Essa, he beat me. El Somebody or whatever his name was, but he beat
I knew
me.
who you're talking about.
Yeah, he was George's guy too.
Right.
And he beat me at that show, but he was like 250 and I think I was like 212 or 216, right? But I was still pushing him because my shape was so much better than his. But I was so hard for that show, and I remember just like I didn't have to take no diuretics, do anything, and we were just eating, trying to fill me out because my body was just going through it so fast. And I'm like, what is this thing on? You know, and I could barely talk. Like they were interviewing me, I'm like so raspy, and I was so
shingles.
dry, and I ended up with fucking shingles because my body was so stressed out.
You gotta get a shot for that. I got it.
You got the shot for that?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Get your shingles vaccination, people.
Get
Especially
your
if you're over 50.
vaccinations, people.
I don't co-sign that. No, but seriously, like I'm like, I couldn't believe how dialed in I was for that show, and it did not matter. I was like, I'm not fucking hearing it again. And I did that show, and I had amazing photo shoots after and everything, but I was like, I just
Feeling weird.
bad shingles, man. It was
well,
crazy.
You can't control that.
Yeah, so I was like,
Unless you get your vaccination.
Right. Vaccination, you gotta worry about it. Stay alive, people. Billions of people taking vaccinations. Billions.
yeah, well, I'm gonna leave that one alone. But leave that one alone.
We're all allowed to disagree.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
it.
gonna leave that one alone.
That's another lesson for you, everyone. Learn to disagree without hating.
That's it.
Mm,
It ain't hard.
That's a true one. That's
Seriously.
true. That's true.
It ain't hard.
It ain't hard.
So you've been in this game a long time. You've seen like some of the greats that have done it. You've trained next to them. Like, what is one of your favorite stories from when you were out in Venice?
Wow. Well, you know, I lived with Lee Priest. I lived with Jay Cutler. I trained with Akim and Albrecht, old friends. Flex and Chris Cormier were good friends. Probably one of my favorite stories is we were trained. Akim and I were training for the Arnold Classic, and it was the year that Flex won. It was the year right after he turned pro. I want to say '92, maybe
Okay.
'93. I'm getting old, so my dates are. I
Right.
believe it was '92. And it was the year that Flex won every show.
Yeah,
So
right.
anyway,
Yeah.
I'm training with Occam, and
That was 93. 93.
Occam they called him the German Giant. He was talking about discipline. This guy was, we got up, we went to the gym, we ate, we went home, we slept, we got up, we ate, we went back to the gym every day. German, he was a German. It was just, so one day we're training, and he disappears, and he would never walk away from us doing sets. Like, where'd he go? Where'd he go? 5 minutes later, he comes back, he looks at me, he says, Jack, I cannot do it. I said, what do you mean you cannot do it? What are we talking about? I cannot win. I cannot win this show. So what are you talking about? You're my hero. You're the German Giant. Of course you're gonna win. He was the Weeder's first match monster. He was the man. He said, I just saw Flex Wheeler, and I cannot do it. Like, get out of here, you Flex Wheeler. He's like 218. He's like 220. You're 275 pounds. You're the king. Go in the posing room and look. Now, Gold's Gym, as you know, has 2 posing rooms. I said, okay, fine. And everybody knew me. You know, we were all family back then. We were all real close. And Flex is a wonderful person.
Yeah, he is.
You know,
I
I'm
know.
always supporting him. And Chris is a funny dude. I walk in the posing room, and Chris is there, Sean Ray's there, and Flex is posing in the mirrors. You know, you can see Bobby. You look here, and you can see your back. It's a really cool setup. And Flex, I stopped, and I went, and I looked at Flex. I had never seen anything like it. His waist was about 24 inches, and his shoulders, and he took a breath, and he flexed, and I went, holy shit. But then it wasn't over. It was like he took a breath,
Got more.
and hit him, and flexed again, and it was like fucking Transformers. His legs went dink, 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 and his shoulders went bink, bink, bink. It didn't look real to me. And I mean, when I tell you he was this wide and his waist was this big, I'd never seen anything like it in my whole life. I was at a loss for words. I was flat. I was like, right? I walked out. I walked up to Occam and said, "You're right. You can't beat him." And he didn't. We went to the Arnold. I was training with Occam for the Arnold Classic that year. I was there, you know, and Flex wanted the show.
Sure.
Probably
Yeah, he
one of the,
crushed it.
in my opinion, one of, if not the best bodybuilder in the history of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
When you combine, you know, Ronnie was bigger than him, but the symmetry and his posing and his detail, I love Ronnie and I love Jay too, who I'm very close to Jay. I still talk to him. We live together. Lee Priest was amazing too. The height to mass ratio.
Sure.
We talk about Sean Clarita. We'll talk about him, but he reminds me of back then it was Lee Priest. And by the way, I'm the first person to ever meet Lee Priest. I picked him up at the airport.
Wow.
Ed Connors said, Jack, I need you to go pick up this kid from Australia. Ed Connors was one of the 3 owners of Gold's Gym and was one of my sponsors. So he said, Jack, I need you to go pick up this kid at the airport. Okay. So I pick him up, I bring him to the gym, and it's Lee Priest. And he's 5'5", 5'4", and he's about this one. And he's 19 years old. And I'm like, what the fuck, right? So we lived together. And then 2 weeks later, Jay Cutler shows up. And I'm like, you know what? Time for me to go back to college. Because these dudes were like on a...
Men's men.
I think I'm a good bodybuilder.
Right.
I've stood the test of time.
Right.
But these guys were another level. It was like a great comment. Like Freddie. Freddie's another level. He's got the genetics. He's got the... I'm just a grinder, right? I've just managed to survive through the force of my own will.
Outwork everybody else.
Outwork everybody else. That's who
it.
I am.
Yep.
But I never had really the genetics
Sure.
or and when I met those two, I was like, what the fuck? And but it was impressive. It never bothered me. I was never jealous. I was just always in awe of these folks.
So Jack's nickname is the Rhino. And the reason why is because, no lie, when he was in his prime, he looked like a fucking rhino. He looked like he could run through any wall, knock that shit down. The juggernaut is what they should have called him, because he was huge. Huge. Like when you did strongman, right?
I did it all.
Yeah, when you did strongman and when you did powerlifting, right?
Yeah,
what were some of your best numbers powerlifting?
In the gym, I was one of the first of 3 people to squat over 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Bench 7, pull 960.
That's fucking crazy.
I was a world champion in 3 different divisions. I was a collegiate national All-American. Yeah, I was actually a better powerlifter than I was a bodybuilder. I went 3 years powerlifting and never lost a meet. I took first.
That's crazy.
Because again, force of will. I remember my coach one year. I was behind in the nationals one year, and I had never pulled more than like 800 pounds in the deadlift, and it was the last lift, and I looked at the coach, and he's like, "You're behind by like 80 pounds." I'm like, "Put it on, put it on." Nobody's fucking beating me today, and I just had that confidence. And I remember pulling. Did you ever see the guy shake? Right? I got like 900 pounds shaking. I'm like, and it was like, it seemed like hours. It was like seconds.
I know.
And I'm shaking and I'm thinking to myself, then we're at Temple University in McGonigal Hall, there's 5,000 people watching, and I'm going to Temple at the time. I'm thinking, there's no fucking way this is going backwards. I pulled it and I won. And I actually got best lifter at that meet. Nice. Which super heavyweights never get. It's pound for pound. Right, so yeah, I've been fortunate enough to battle in different arenas. Mm-hmm. It's just what I like to do.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, fellow collegiate All-American.
Thank you, sir.
I won it in '96 and '97.
What college did you go to?
I went to Salisbury State University. The only kid from there competing against Texas A&M.
Well, you were a hell of a powerlifter.
Yeah, we did all right. But I was 198 pounder, and my best numbers at 198 were a 655 squat.
That's great.
455 bench and a 690 deadlift.
Yeah, see, pound for pound, that's actually better than me.
So I don't know that, but I do know it wasn't all the gear and everything we have now.
We didn't have any gear.
It was single ply.
No, I bench 700 pounds with a single ply.
Yeah, single ply.
And I pulled 900 pounds with no straps.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Sorry, Thor.
Yeah, I ain't had straps either, but I didn't pull 900s. Well, what's crazy is, you talk about Flex Wheeler, and that's an idea of the mental aspect of it, because when I talked to Flex, we were in Spain and we were having a conversation, he said, man, if I could just had the mental side of it that Ronnie had.
He never, so Flex was a guy, and this is not a criticism, it's just a reality. Mm-hmm. He was so genetically gifted that he did not have that discipline.
Nope.
And he knew it.
But he'll admit that though.
He was very, and listen, at the time, he was, doing guest postings at $5,000 a pop, and he was making a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And this back in the '90s, it was a lot of money. And by the way, he deserved every penny he made. He was awesome. Again, one of my favorite, if not my favorite ever. But he did not have the mental fortitude to get hard, and he came in soft sometimes.
Sure.
And that's why he didn't win the Olympics.
And he got some, he even admitted he got some gifts in there. Yeah. Because it was the name. right? We're gonna give him the benefit of the doubt before they give it to anybody.
But I will tell you this, I'm gonna interrupt you, I'm gonna tell you this. Flex Wheeler at his best, which was like the Arnold Classic '93, could win the Olympia time and time again today.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean,
He
I
beat 'em all.
I honestly don't. I mean, other than like I don't know if any of the people today could beat Ronnie for sure. I know they can.
No way.
And I don't know if anyone out there other than I felt like when Sean Roden was up on stage that was the closest version to a flex wheeler we had. But he didn't have quite the bubbleness of upper body, but his legs were crazy.
Yeah.
And Phil Heath, I mean, I don't care what anyone says, has one of the best back double biceps we've ever seen.
Yeah.
But that sheer like wow factor, like Flex was just like you would never see Flex and be like, yeah, he's big and everything, but symmetrically he could
You
be
just
a little
never use
better.
the word but.
What?
You would never say but.
No, it was just like perfection.
Yeah.
It was perfection.
And there's another guy too who nobody ever talks about, who, if he was another genetic freak who didn't have any discipline, who really was better than all of them, which is Paul Dillette.
You
No.
think like he was a
Well,
freak,
Freddie,
man?
I'm going to tell you, I trained right with
Yeah,
him.
Paul
on
Dillette
the
was
regular.
crazy, bro. But he couldn't
and-
pose for shit.
No, but I'm just telling you, this guy was flex wheeler, but at 285 pounds.
Wow.
You know
if-
Paul Dillette.
Yeah, I know.
If
That's
he
what
would've
started
just-
the federation, right?
Yeah,
He's a perfect example of if he would have dropped another 15 pounds, he would have smoked everybody. And learned how to pose.
He was crazy looking, man.
He was.
You know,
You should have seen him in the gym. And you, by the way, never train. You just come in and do some curls.
I heard. Yeah, what was he taking?
Right.
He's not gonna do that.
Well, I don't. If he sees this video, I wouldn't want him to.
So,
think
I
that.
mean,
I wonder-
I wouldn't
well,
want to disrespect.
Let's be general and say like, because when I talk to so like when me and Branch Warren were talking backstage, right? The cycles were very moderate. It was more about the way we were training and the food we were eating, right? And of course, the ones that took crazy amounts don't last long, right? But I feel like, when you genetically have it, you don't need to do the crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Lee Priest always told me that he had, and he lived with me. I believed him because I was right there.
Almost nothing.
He would take like a couple hundred milligrams of what was called Parabol, which is now known as Tren.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not that's true, I don't know.
So how do you think guys like, take Lee Haney, I made him talk to him for about an
Uh-huh.
hour at the Arnold Classic last year. And I think that the difference in technology makes a big difference, right? The technology, understanding the meds and stuff, and the different types of training. Now, when it comes to lifting, I'll put more plates on and lift more. That's kind of how I lift weights when I'm training myself. But when I'm working with other folks, they get into more of the technical mythology of training. Turn at this angle,
And
turn that
they
angle.
overthink themselves into not,
Exactly.
into
To
not
me,
getting big.
just put more plates on.
Well, when it comes to the pharmacology behind it, I feel like the guys in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s had access to more authentic stuff. It wasn't so much somebody making it.
No, we all bought it we got it from farm. There were no
Pharmaceutical, right? So when you're doing that, it's on because I've tried a pharmaceutical grade bottle of test, and
It's way different.
It's way different. It reacts. It hits different. Let's just say it hits different.
GH
Okay.
too.
But true, right? But now Rashad over there was shaking his head because Rashad's part of the new school method. And so, what's your feeling on training and as opposed to just putting more plates on all that stuff?
Well, no, I was agreeing with that. I misunderstood what you were saying, but it's just that certain things have changed scientifically, but realistically, we're still in the infancies of training in general. Because first gym wasn't made until like 1969 or some shit like that, where like an actual gym. So you look at that versus medicine, we're still in the infancies of training with weights, traditional training like we're doing now. So nothing has really changed in the last 50 years in the sense of how to grow muscle and whatnot like that. So yeah, pharmaceuticals and whatnot has changed, make it more refined. But like you said, lift heavy, grow, fill in your areas. And that's not even from a bodybuilding standpoint.
Yeah,
it's training.
that's what I was going to say was as it relates to the pharmaceuticals, you're right, technology's much better. However, it's still gonna come down to genetics.
Mm-hmm.
Freddie and I could do the same cycle, and he's gonna get
Yep.
a different result than I am.
Yep.
He has better genetics than I do, and I mean that as a compliment. As far as training goes, let me tell you all something. The law of physics and gravity have not changed.
Ever. Ever.
since 93 or 83 or 73 or back, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, it's resistance. Now, how you do that is fine. You want to use bands and you want to jerk off in low gear, knock yourself out, okay? But if you want to do strong, heavy compound movements and stuff that's going to, and look at your physique, like for me, I don't do a lot of back. I don't do a lot of back because my back gets ridiculously big and it makes my arms look small. So I don't do a lot of heavy back training. So you have to know your body, you have to know your genetics, you have to know your physique, you have to know. But gravity and physics has
Hasn't
not
changed
changed
one bit. Still 9.8 meters per second. So-
I don't really believe in a lot of the things to your question. I don't really believe that it needs to be. I know somebody in this gym specifically, and I'm not going to say who. He's a good guy, but he overthinks everything. I got to turn. Jack, how do you get such activation when you do your calf raises? Well, I let my foot go all the way down, and I push them all the way up.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
That's
and
it.
He's like, I got to turn my leg this way and get the angle, and I'm like, dude, you're overthinking everything, and what happens is you have analysis paralysis.
That's it.
And no matter what you do, right, it's
You gotta
never
find
good
something
enough.
more.
And
That's
then you
right.
get frustrated and you quit.
Yep.
People say, Jack, how can, like I'm 260 right now, 55 years old. How can you be 260 pounds at 55? Well, I was 300 pounds at, 40?
Right.
It's real simple. 2 to 3 pounds a year for 20 goddamn years, right?
Yeah.
It's not, there's no secret. There's no secret formula. When I was in Venice Beach, Don Ross, do you remember Don Ross? He was the editor of Muscular. He and I were very close. He interviewed me one day, and he said, there was because I was before Palumbo showed up and before Jay showed up, I was one of the big guys because it was me and Malcolm. And I was as strong as Malcolm, if not stronger.
Okay.
So I was making a splash. Everyone's saying that you're doing you're doing tons more drugs than everybody else. What's your comment on that? My comment, I said, quote, you really want my comment? Quote, here's my quote. You're right. I'm taking all the steroids. In fact, I've taken all the steroids in town, so don't try to buy any. Because I've used them all.
I love it.
Right? There's nothing different. You know what's different between 90s and today, okay, is discipline and is the fact that people lean on the
Facts.
technology too much.
Facts.
Right, drugs.
Yeah.
Okay? Synthol, right? We
Yep.
used what was called Essiclean.
Right. Right.
We all used it, but we didn't use it like they use it today. And I'm not gonna, but some of these guys they're all
You can
using
see
it.
it. Yeah.
That it's ruining their detail, like Freddie and I were talking about, and it's. Look, you want to train hard or not? Like Nick Walker was telling me, I saw him in here. I've trained next to him. He trains hard, man.
Yeah. No
You
doubt.
got to give him respect. He
Yeah.
talks a lot, but you know what?
Well-
he trains hard.
Nick, when I talk to him, he's like, when I'm ready to go, I go.
Right, and that's the way you got to be.
Doesn't have a timer. He's pretty consistent with when we were talking. Like, he just does everything like he's flexing it on stage. But he's not using any specific tempo. He's like, if I'm doing a back row, I'm flexing it like I do on stage. Squeeze, and that's the way he's doing everything. And so it's what we talk about all the time. It's like we're not trying to move weight. We're trying to
Get a pump.
contract.
Contract.
Contract
muscle.
You're training your
Make it
muscles,
harder.
not your ego.
That's
right,
it.
right. You're trying to contract, right? So, and I think, but I do believe part of you being that thick and dense is from the early years
Oh, yeah.
of moving
Power
at that
Sure.
gait. Absolutely, right? Because I mean, that's
No, there's no doubt about it.
because for me as a natty, I was always accused of being on stuff
Yep.
because I was so much thicker than everyone else from all the powerlifting.
Right. I was accused too, but I actually was on stuff. But anyway,
I'm accused even now.
sure.
I don't think I look like.
That's just people get jealous. They don't.
Well, I mean, when we were getting ready for the show and we were doing those final workouts, you did look very impressive, and you are bigger than the average natural person. But it's again what he was talking about earlier: 1 to 2 pounds a year for your in your
40
40s.
years, yeah.
Exactly. You're going to be thicker than a guy in his 20s. You
Right.
know? But I think for me, like where I get kind of frustrated sometimes with all the new school theories and all that kind of stuff is that, like I know science is being studied, but is it being studied on us? And the answer is no, it's not. right? So that's where I sometimes get frustrated with some of the data and the science coming out with some of the coaches, because I always say the ones telling us we don't need to do X, Y, and Z are always the ones that never competed. Right?
I had this situation, specifically
And-
doctors.
And the ones telling us you don't need to go to failure are also the ones that are typically not big
That's it.
or never really been that big, right? Or
Right.
when they were that big, they were like one of my best friends who preaches all the time, no volume now, one set to failure. When he was writing my workouts, and I got the biggest jumps in my physique twice in my life. Once was when I was in college, going to starting a powerlifting team, and the volume we did was ridiculous. It was crazy. I mean, it was like 8 different exercises for
Powerlifting?
powerlifting. Like, because in the beginning of a cycle, he was trying to match the intensity we would have. We did Western periodization.
Okay.
So we would do 50%, and now when I did Terry Grimwood's system, his 50% workouts were very short, 3 to 4 sets, and it was done. And every week you would increase the amount of volume on your main thing, right? But my coach Dave Nettles, who also squatted 1,000-something pounds at 309, right? We would do squats, 7 sets of 7, followed by leg press with a drop set at the end of leg. This was our first workout getting into the cycle. Leg press, step ups, 4 sets, 6 to 8. Then we would do this hack squat with only 15 seconds rest between. By the time I got to the 4th week, I kid you not, I was doing Smith machine squat, sorry, with her feet together. I was doing 225 with only 15 seconds rest between, and I was banging out 15 reps for 4 sets. And I don't even know how I was doing that, but your lower back is on fire the first week you do it, but by the time you get to the 4th and 5th week, you don't feel anything. And then you still gotta do your hack squats, and you still gotta do your leg extension, your wall sits, and then your walking lunges.
Like Tom Platts.
And you're in there, but my legs were fucking huge.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, people go, you don't need that much volume, you don't need that much volume. And I'm going, that was a big jump. Then in 2014, after I'd already done 2 Olympias, I started training in a different system with Paul Carter, and the volume was stupid. Almost 2-hour workouts, right?
Wow.
Crush me. But I did everything. And I got on stage for the first time, high 230s.
Volume works for you.
Volume.
Right, it works, but I think there's something to be about volume, periodizing volume into your training is important,
Sure.
right?
I always do higher volume now as an older guy, just
Right.
because I don't want to get injured.
That's what they're doing with
I just do high volume. I train for the pump now, but you're right. I have the luxury of that because for years I trained so goddamn heavy.
Right.
So I already I'm thick. If I don't need to train, I'm 240.
But don't get it twisted. When I was doing that volume in that 2015 season where I won my first show, when I won my first pro show, it was like 8 sets of 3. So I was rack deadlifting close to 800 pounds. Right? And then, so one of the workouts was we would rack deadlift for 8 sets. From there, I would go to snatch grip deadlifts for 5 sets. From there, bent over rows. From there, shrugs. From there, upright rows. And then we would do a pull down.
Wow.
All that in one workout. And I'm talking like, I was over 30-something sets.
I'll say yeah.
Do you still do shrugs with your back, or do you do it with shoulders? With delts?
I do shrugs with delts. Yeah, delts.
I do too.
But then, I've also seen a lot of that low row has done a lot to build, pulling the traps
Yeah,
this
sure,
way. So,
sure.
yeah, so, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy when I see people talking about, I don't want to do too much volume. I'm like,
Why?
No, you can never do too much volume.
Yeah,
You can go too heavy and get hurt.
Well,
I'm not a believer in going to failure anymore because of my age.
right.
I think there's many different factors, right? Depending on your age, are you on the gear? Are you eating right? Are you resting enough? Are you stressed out in your life?
Sure.
You know this. And so there's components to overtraining.
Mm-hmm.
I always undertrained, specifically, where I would do volume. I would never go to failure because I was always afraid of tearing something.
Sure. For the first time in my life, I'm there. First of my life.
Well, I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to direct it at you, but I saw Occam do it when I first, he did it with his biceps, I watched his bicep go ding,
Yeah.
and that freaked me out in 93 or 94, and I've always been a little scared, because I'm super strong. I can probably bench 500 pounds now, but I won't do it. I don't even mess with the dumbbells much, because I don't want to, I don't want to flip them up, right? So as much as I love doing presses and dumbbell presses and shoulder presses, I gotta get those 100-pound dumbbells up. And like every time I do stuff, like I used to do these arm, if I do them, I always injure this shoulder. I just don't want to get hurt.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it depends. When you're young, you're invincible, right? You can, I remember doing bent over stiff leg deadlifts with 405, and for 10 reps, like it was nothing.
Yeah, I was getting ready for the prep and stiff leg and 600.
You're still really strong. I see you. You're still very strong.
I think the issue is it's a lot what you've said. It's the paralysis by analysis. There's so many different types of training, different types of methodologies. I think the key is the benefit of having a coach work with you is he or she should be knowledgeable enough to determine what style of training works best for your body and the way that you react.
Sure.
That's true.
I know that Fred has figured out my card. It's volume, right? He'll just keep going, Walter. Nope, I didn't say stop yet. So, and some people, and I watch him train other folks like, damn, dude, they did 10 reps.
Right.
You didn't even tell me how many. You just said go.
Right. But also going back to getting back to full circle to old school versus new school. I was just thinking about while you were talking. I was talking to Chris Cormier just maybe 6 months ago on Facebook, and he's like, "Dude, these guys don't know. They have no idea how hard we trained and what it was like." And it was different back then. You didn't have headphones. Everybody talked. Everybody trained together. Everybody helped each other. And
Well, I think you didn't, like and sometimes I think social media has changed a lot too, because everyone's got to have a way to sell their method.
That's right.
Sure.
Sell their method, right? So when you sell your method, what's going to differentiate mine from yours? So if I can tell you,
Put some spin on it.
if I can tell you, you can do less work
Hey,
and get the
there
same
you go.
result.
you're gonna sell
That's
that.
more
That's
appealing.
it.
That's more
I
appealing,
agree.
right?
I never thought of that.
That's the
Yeah.
truth, right? Like I look at some of these guys and I go, I say, why do you think you can grow a stubborn body part with less volume? That doesn't make sense, right? Like maybe in spurts, but stimulate, then back off a little bit, then crush it again. And I think sometimes we overthink, well, if I do this angle, no, you need to lift.
I just did it to myself last week.
Right.
I decided I want to get my legs, my upper body's really responding. My legs, I have not, because of my lower back, I haven't been doing a lot of squats.
Right.
So I've been going balls to the wall on the leg press, heavy. It's
Right.
working.
Right.
Doing the other stuff,
Yeah.
belt squats or whatever. But point being is, if I want my legs to change,
responding, right.
to respond, I gotta shock them.
Sure. Shocking is very important. Like, introducing a different nuance to the body, so the body has to respond, right? And now, like the new thing is now, like muscle doesn't break down; it's through mechanical tension, the involuntary stoppage of a movement, right? That you're creating enough tension and that's how you're producing growth, and maybe I guess that's what it is.
That's the old plyometrics, right? Plyometrics back in the 70s, when they'd say, well, push against the wall.
Right.
If you push hard enough, you'll build muscle. That didn't work either.
I'm like, it's just everyone's trying to reinvent the wheel.
I never thought of it that way, but you know what? That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, everyone's trying to
And if you can show
reinvent the
somebody
wheel.
to do it in an easier way, they're going to buy your method.
Absolutely.
Here's what I'll tell you. We have an amazing show coming up this weekend at the Arnold Classic. That's called a transition.
Yeah, you did
Transition,
good.
pick that.
No, you shouldn't even say anything. I was going with it.
Right, we were going there,
There you
right?
go.
If you didn't laugh, I'd have been good, right? No,
Worst transition.
it was a great transition.
I thought it was
Because
fantastic.
I hadn't even got to where I was going yet. You said I laughed. Golly.
No, go with it, man. You're on a roll.
I wonder what type of training that these guys are doing different. Now, I happen to like Andrew Jack and I like Sampson, and they've both been coached in two very similar ways. You know, the
Do
way
you think
that
so?
we-
Do you think they're being coached in some ways?
Yeah, I think Milos is coaching Sampson all volume, all heavy, and I think that
Chris
Chris
Cycle
Cycle
Lewis.
is absolutely breaking Andrew
I
Jack
don't know
in the
that
gym
Milos
every day.
Milos is not all heavy. Milos is lots of volume, lots of supersets and giant sets.
Lots of carbs and lots
Well,
of
watching,
insulin, too.
I just watched the video. I watched Sampson's videos, the training videos,
Yeah, I don't know that
and he
he's.
be moving weight, bro.
I don't know that he's using Milos's training.
Oh, he may not. Well, that I don't know. He hasn't.
Right.
There's been no other people that he's seen, he's talked about,
I think-
that he's working with.
I've seen Milos break down a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of people when it comes to that training. That training is rough.
Yeah,
That's-
but you know,
I've seen him do it. I was out in Vegas.
Oh my gosh, that's a different type of training there, man. That's like,
Talking
have you
about-
seen him do a training
yeah,
session?
I
It's
watched him do
crazy.
Sampson, and I watched him work with
Oh my
Sampson.
God, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Now,
but this show is great. I mean, I think that you're going to have some good competition. Who do you think, Freddie, do you see?
So we got 10. I'm running them down. We got Bonac,
uh-huh,
Clarita,
uh-huh.
Dowda, which is Samson Dowda, Kamala Gardney from the 212.
Everybody's disrespecting. No one giving my man no love.
He's 53 years old, right?
Yeah, right.
Nick
no one giving him
Rami,
a shot.
Patrick Moore, Andrew Jack, Justin Rodriguez, who shouldn't be doing this show, Nick Walker, and Akeem Williams. This is going to be a very, very interesting show. There are a wild number of possibilities. However, the two people that won't be first,
Who?
Patrick Moore and Justin Rodriguez.
Patrick
Well, not
Moore? Like the Patrick Moore that I know?
Patrick Moore, he took, I think his best finish at the Olympia is 9th one.
10th.
10th best
Well,
finish at Olympia.
The only 10th was only the only one when he won the Cali Pro.
Yeah.
I'll tell you who I'd like to see win, who I think is probably one of the best bodybuilders out there right now is Clarita.
He won't win.
I know he won't,
Yeah.
but I said I would like
Like
to see
him.
him win because when you take out, the variables of the height, I mean, if you look at this kid,
He's amazing.
Jesus Christ.
Agreed. Kid,
His-
he's 40.
his
Isn't he
dent-
40?
Still a
I mean,
kid.
we're
Still
all
a kid to
we're
me.
all- we're all in the same.
You're all kids.
Yeah, right?
You're all kids to me.
I've been backstage.
I get art. I get
just
the
coming
art
out.
magazine, so you can kiss my ass.
No, I
No,
think
he's awesome.
I mean, honestly, from a standpoint of, looking at everything, density, symmetry, muscularity, I mean, I think I would not be surprised to see Andrew Jack win it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because now he's working with Chris Aceto, so he's going to be peeled.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way Chris Cycle Lewis is training him, he's going to be dense.
Mm-hmm.
And symmetrically, from the front, he's perfect already. And that's with inferior training compared to what he has now. From the back, he was shallow, but I feel like all that work they're doing in their back,
It'll come out.
it'll come out. And it's funny because I talked to somebody and they're like, all that stuff he's doing is stupid. It doesn't make sense because X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, to my knowledge, he's trained a Mr. Olympia. You haven't.
You haven't.
So I don't care what book you read.
Right.
If he's done it, and it's the same person
With
that
somewhat similar physiques, too.
will talk about how Charles Glass is flawed in what he's saying. And I'm thinking to myself, these guys have produced results over and over and over again.
Another guy that I'm very good friends with, Charles Glass, who's a genius.
And Charles
He
Glass
was
trained
responsible-
me.
He was responsible for Chris.
Yeah.
For Flex.
He
Yeah.
trained me, and I'm like, stuff that I thought wasn't a big deal. And he showed me little nuances, and I was like, damn, that makes me feel
He's been doing it for
different.
a long time, that guy.
Yeah, just understanding how the body moves, and he's putting people in positions that you look at and go, that doesn't look right. But when you do it, you're like, oh shit, I get it.
Right.
I get it, right? So, and again, it's important to understand he's training you for physique transformation, not
Right.
performance. That's huge, right?
Big
Understanding what the objective is. But I think Andrew Jack has a really good shot to win it. I'd like to see. I'm thinking it's going to be him in first. Thinking Nick's going to be in second. I'm thinking Ramy is going to be third. Thinking Sampson's going to be fourth. And here's why I
Wow.
say Sampson fourth. I feel like he's going to be slightly off the mark to those other people, conditioning wise. I feel like he's going to be round. He's going to be symmetrical. He's going to be full. But I feel like he's going to be the one that's slightly off because the extremeness to how they peak is going to be hit or miss. And if it can go wrong, I think that's where it's going to go wrong.
I agree with you placing except for one. I just put one asterisk, and that is I feel like Rami has something to prove now.
That's-
and if he comes in
yes.
shape, if he comes in,
He can win that thing.
yeah,
He'll win. Yeah.
Because, and I think he will because of what happened at the Olympia. I think,
And I think
he's got
Chad's going to
something
be on him, man. I think Chad's going to.
Another guy who knows what he's doing.
Absolutely, Chad knows what he's doing. So like they missed the mark with him and Bonac. So I expect to see Bonac fighting Sean for that 5th or 6th spot, and and who else we got? in there?
Akeem Williams.
Yeah, I feel like Akeem's gonna
He's
be fighting for something because he looks pretty
that dude's
good.
a beast.
Kamala Garden.
I feel like that's where the size is going to hurt him because
His legs
he's
aren't
not
there.
round.
Right.
He's not round. He outsizes the people in the 212, but he's not bubbly. He's not super.
You gotta have roundness in this day.
Right. It's not with this group. You got to be round, right?
I'm not
And then who else we got? Justin Rodriguez
Rodriguez.
and Patrick Moore. I mean, Justin's got a lot of muscle, and he's got a pretty physique when he nails it.
He's
He
cooked,
just.
though. He did like 5 shows. last
Well,
year.
I mean, if you're looking at it that way, I mean, probably Sampson did the same amount of shows, right? Didn't he?
No.
No? Well, I think,
Samson did 3.
and then I think Patrick Moore. I don't know what to expect from Patrick Moore. I mean, he symmetrically has a beautiful shape, but I mean, as he's put on more size, he hasn't really nailed the conditioning like that. So it'd be interesting. And is he big enough to contend with the Andrew Jack and Sampson? And that's the issue.
He also hurt his leg last year, so he wasn't able to train his legs fully.
Right. Right.
I know this isn't part of the discussion, but I want to go there. What about this kid, Keon Pearson?
I love him.
What the fuck?
Yeah, his last updates look crazy, right?
Bro,
What updates? He's looked crazy since he started posting.
Yeah, but
Bruh.
he hasn't. Again, he's one of the ones that just misses the
You see
mark.
it? Yeah.
With the
last year he didn't
conditioning.
do bad in Olympia.
Got 6.
Yeah.
But if you're Keon,
in the open or 212?
212s.
212s.
If you're Keon Pearson, though, with the expectations you
Yeah.
got coming in, you're expected to be challenging for that number
He
one.
reminds me of Jimmy Quinn. You remember Jimmy Quinn? Jimmy Quinn was in the 90s, and he would walk around the gym. He's 6'5", 295 pounds, and he was shredded at 295 pounds.
And how does Keon remind you of him?
I'm gonna tell you how. Jim would walk around the gym, and you'd say, everybody would look, go, how the fuck is this guy not won the Olympia? But then when the showtime would come, he would miss the mark.
Oh yeah.
Every time he had a great gym physique, so many great gym physiques.
Sure.
So Keon could be one of these guys that
I don't know. I think
I think even me, I look better in the gym than I do. Maybe not at my best on stage, but some guys just look better, fuller, and maybe they're holding water in their waist, but they look good here. They could go great in a tank top, but when the trunks go on, there's nothing to hide.
I think sometimes with that happens because you're not trusting the look. And when I say that, like I take Cedric McMillan, him and I were guest posing in Trinidad together, and we were talking, and he's like, man, I sabotage myself every time because I never think I'm going to be good enough, right? So, and this is why I say that, because he would, Chris would tell him, take just a third of a diazide, and he'd take 2.
I'd take 3.
Tell him take 2, flatten himself out, not popping, and then somebody who's inferior is beating him, right? Because he doesn't trust the process. And when you're always thinking more, in a panic mode of gotta get, I remember,
And that's me.
I trained somebody and I'm like looking at him like, oh man, you look awesome, and I see him 2 hours before stage. I'm like, you look like you lost 20 pounds. What the fuck you do?
Dropped another diet.
He's like, I just took another diuretic to make sure. I'm like, you look terrible now. You look like you lost
Why?
2 years of training. And unfortunately, with diazide's mild, so typically if you catch it enough time, you can rebound. But if you take something harsher, you ain't coming back. You're done. You're done.
I never take any harsher.
Right. But it's if you don't have anyone looking at you, you're like
Right.
you
When I won the Daytona, I had Anthony
Right.
with me, and he was in the room with me, and he said, we're gonna get a couple hamburgers, and I started, what?
Yeah.
I started getting very agitated. We're doing what? I'm like, no, I'm not eating any hamburgers. You're gonna eat some hamburgers.
Right.
And I was fighting with him, but I trust him. Just like I trust you. And I was like, he kept looking at me. He goes, you need to eat a hamburger.
Yeah. I mean, at that point when you're that peeled, man, it's like keeping enough food. And I remember Eddie when we took 5th at the Dallas Europa. his, this is like his third pro show or something. We had missed the mark at the New York Pro, and 2 weeks later said, just trust me, I know what we're going to do. I know where we messed up. And we go to Dallas Europa, and Eddie's what, 180, it's 170 pounds going against guys that are 212. But when he got on stage, he was so hard, so dialed in that your eye was drawn to him. And I was like, we need to eat some junk because he just kept going through the food.
Right.
So I gave him a burger and fries, and
Just kept looking better and better.
it's better and better. Absolutely.
I love it when you're that lean and you can do that. I've had a couple situations where it's guys like, okay, you need to get some McDonald's in you. And I'm like, okay. And the more I ate, the better I looked.
Yeah, yeah. McDonald's, I will never fuck with that again. I'm in Vancouver Pro, and after prejudging, it's me and Ben Pekulski in the center, and half the audience is saying I'm winning, other half saying Ben's winning. So it's going to come down to the night show, right? And I remember Paul's calling me. He's like, "Man, just fucking stay to the diet. You're going to fucking beat him. You're going to beat him tonight." And I said, "Okay, I'm just going to stay with my plan." But I was being lazy. I was supposed to go to a nice restaurant, get a burger, fry.
Oh, you went to McDonald's instead?
I went to fucking McDonald's and got 2 burgers, and it was
a lot more sodium.
the weirdest thing ever. I didn't expand this way. I started expanding this way. Like my sides started coming out. My waist looked so much thicker. I was just like, what the fuck's going on? I was backstage watching it happen
5
in the mirror.
times as much sodium. That's
Oh my God, it was the worst feeling. I was like,
Preservatives.
nothing I can do about it. And afterwards, when the judges come up and goes, "Fred, you had it locked up. What happened?" He's like, your waist looked like it was 3 times the size it was this morning. I'm like, I was lazy. I didn't go to the right. Oh man, $7,000 swing in fucking prize money, just like that. It's crazy. Fucking crazy. But yeah, so my top 5, like I said, is going to be, I'm thinking it's going to be Andrew Jack, Nick, Ramy, Samson, and then Sean Clarita.
And like I said, I would agree with that, except for the cat with the asterisk. If Ramy shows up in his best condition, he will win. So I'm just going
I like that.
to asterisk that in there.
Like that.
Yeah, mine's a little bit different.
Well, tell me what you got.
I think Samson and Andrew Jack are going to be in the middle after the first call outs. Be them two, and a distant third is going to be Nick or Ramy.
You think those two are the future, don't you?
Absolutely, by far. They're too tall, they're too big, they're too complete. I don't see how, as much as Sean Clarita, you can't add more muscle anywhere on his body. He's just not big enough.
The size thing is
That
the problem.
300
when
pounds.
he stands next to somebody.
Yeah.
Lee Priest had the same problem. He was,
Bingo.
height to mass, he was bigger than everybody, but when he stood next to,
Your eyes aren't drawn to him, and that's going to be the difference. And I think that not just the future of bodybuilding. We're talking for the next 10 years. Bodybuilders are not going to be 5'9", 5'7", just because those two guys are too big.
Talking from a 6'1" guy over here. Well, I'm 5'7", so go Nick. Go Sean.
I was 5'10".
Go Bonet.
I was a 5'10" for a long time, but now I'm 5'8.5". So
Even in
I
men's
did a
physique, Aaron Banks won, right? And he's 4 inches taller than Hendricks.
that's a little different.
And in classic physique, can you name a better champion than Chris Bumstead?
Honestly, truthfully, I think that is it Breon?
For classic,
Terrence Ruffin.
I thought Breon.
Ruffin is closer, but Ruffin has the same issue.
Look, for the thing is, I don't think it's about height. I think it's about height to mass, right? And
Sure.
If you have enough muscle, you can pull it off. I think it's harder as a taller guy to pull it off because you have more things going against you.
Exactly.
I think for bodybuilding, the sweet spot's always going to be between 5'6" and 5'10".
I think 5'10". Yeah, I'm not thinking it. Yeah.
But we'll see.
It's gonna be interesting. But that's my 1-2 is
How tall is Andrew Jack and Samson?
6'2" and 6'1".
Yeah, I'm going with Freddie. I think he's right. I think that's kind of tall.
But they're both 300 pounds, bro. That's the.
I'm not arguing. I don't know.
It's going to be interesting to
We'll
see.
see.
I think that
How tall is Ramy?
5'10",
5'10".
And how much does he weigh?
295, 300. Absolutely,
Oh.
absolutely.
I think, again, I don't think.
physique is gonna be prettier on the
No,
stage.
Well,
Yeah, I don't think-
Hold on. I think everyone's forgetting this, that Ramy, see, here's the thing, when you've seen the same thing over and over again, you come numb to it.
I agree.
And
Yep.
Ramy is a monster. The
Yeah.
problem with that is, if he's off a little bit, he's getting penalized harder for it.
Right.
Sure.
Right?
You expect a certain level from him.
Exactly.
You know how the NPC and the IFBB work. How much do you think Ramy not making that Pittsburgh show?
I told everybody.
I think, had he made that Pittsburgh show, the worst Ramy did was third. I think
Had he made that Pittsburgh show and not said anything,
So-
he'd have won.
So do you
I
think?
think,
just
I
because
think,
he's
yes.
Ramy.
I
Do you
think they
think
were
he
like,
was
you're gonna
better?
not even, I think,
This is a little subject that I know a little bit about.
yeah, I think, when you say F you to the IFBB and don't show up for the major event of the year, Jim Mannion's event,
He will crucify you.
you are not going to get any favors. And the thing is, you're not even representing them the way they want you to represent them.
So
So-
Freddie's alluding to a little,
I get it.
a
No,
little-
I understand.
No, you actually don't. It's okay. There's a reason why I'm not an IFBB pro.
Yeah, well,
It's
you
because of Jim Mannion doesn't.
just can't talk to anybody any kind of way.
He can't tell me to fuck himself.
You gotta
But
go
anyway,
play the game.
You gotta listen. Bodybuilding in this world, specifically in the NPC and IFBB,
Sure.
it's about genetics, training, discipline. All the things have to align,
Uh-huh.
and you have to be politically in the right place as well.
Yes.
Just like it, and by the way, just like in the real world.
It's that way in everything.
Everything.
It's that way in everything.
So,
Absolutely.
so let's not pretend like it's any
Sure.
different than, when I go for a job interview at a bank,
Uh-huh.
to run a bank, I'm gonna get a little bit more because the CEO of Siemens has already called and said, Jack's your guy.
Right. Sure.
Because I worked for him for years, you know.
Sure.
So it's not like I'm not pointing this out as like it's something crazy, it's part of life.
Sure. I
So,
understand that
but
part.
Freddie's right, he got punished.
I think he got
for that.
punished. I think he got punished heavily for how he
Handled.
treated and handled the IFBB
Right.
in May. And no one's talking about that, but I feel like that has a big part to do
Well,
with
they're
it.
not talking about that because of all the other problems that are going on right now. that-
Sure.
that,
Yeah,
we don't have to
sure.
talk about now, but we could talk about it on another podcast.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues going around the NPC right now and all that kind of stuff. But
I know a lot about it.
yeah, well, we save that for another one, but
Sure.
make you guys come back and tune in later. But what is your prediction? What did you say? Who do you
I
have
agreed
winning?
with you. I agreed right exactly with you, except for the asterisks of that if Ramy comes in shape and he's back in Weinberger's good graces, he wins. Other than that, which I don't think will happen, those are two big variables,
Sure.
especially the Weinberger one.
Sure.
I'm with you on your exactly.
Yeah, I don't see Ramy and Chad missing the mark again.
I don't either.
I don't see.
But
them
the
missing-
political piece is there too.
I do believe that, but I don't see them missing that mark. And I just think who's the biggest? Ramy's the biggest. He has symmetry, and he's shown that he can be peeled. So I just think he has a great shot at it. But I think the Andrew pick is, Chris is, my coach now. Chris Cycle Lewis, seeing what he did with Sean Roden. Sean was like one of my good friends. So I'm hoping that they put it all together because that'd be a cool story.
It's gonna be a great
That'd
show.
a cool story.
I'm gonna be there.
And I'll be
Fred's
there.
gonna be there.
I'll be there, and I think obviously we're always rooting for my boy Nick to do well.
Yeah, hometown.
Got to train with him a little bit during COVID. Got to see how hard he works. The man is a machine, doesn't miss a meal. Is a machine in the gym, super dedicated. All the gyms closing, he's calling around everybody he can think of just to be able to get in the gym. And this is before he's a pro. So what did you say earlier? It's a lot of time about what they don't see you do.
That's right.
It's all about what you do and nobody's looking.
And no one's looking, that's right. My
That's right.
man is dedicated 100%. So let's see how our predictions check out over the next week. By the time you see this, you already know.
Leave in your comments.
Right. So leave a comment. Let us know what you want to hear. Thank you, Jack, for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Thank my co-host and the man behind the camera, Rashad, Walter. If you like what you saw, please subscribe, click the like button, and please leave a comment. Until next time, peace.
Peace.